Hello and welcome. My name's Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind The Country Chic Cottage. So today we're going to talk about beginner projects with your Cricut machine. I get asked all the time where to start when you get a new Cricut, and this video is definitely for you. Now this video is sponsored by Cricut. However, all projects and opinions are my own. What are we going to make today for beginner Cricut projects? Because some people that aren't even beginners might want to stick around for our project ideas. So we're going to start with a simple card. This is a great simple paper project to get started with when cutting paper with your Cricut. Then we're going to move on to vinyl and apply vinyl to a two-sided keychain, and who doesn't love donuts? Then we're going to move on to iron-on, and we're going to make a zipper pouch with iron-on. Now these same methods can apply to materials for other projects as well. So if you are new to paper projects, vinyl projects, or iron-on projects, this might be the video for you. We're going to talk about the materials you need and some tools that might surprise you that beginners definitely will want to keep in their craft room to craft with their Cricut machine. Now it is the perfect time for this video because tons of people find their Cricut machines on sale this time of year, purchase one, and become that Cricut beginner. If that's you and you're looking for a machine, I have a special deal for you. I have a special coupon code in the description below that's for Cricut machines on Cricut.com. So you can use it on sale prices as well. So head down there, grab that coupon code, watch for those sales over the next couple months, use the coupon code when those sales come up, and you can save a little bit of money. Now, I'm going to use my Cricut Maker 3 for these projects. However, all 3 projects use the fine point blade, which comes with every Cricut machine. So whatever Cricut machine you have, you can break it out and make these simple projects for yourself. We're going to go through design space and the steps to make each one. So let's start with the card and take a look at the supplies we're going to need. So to make the card, you'll need cardstock. So I have white cardstock and I have a variety pack here. I'm just going to use the darker pink color out of this variety pack. You will also need a blue mat. So the blue mat comes with most Cricut machines, but not the Explorer 3 or the Maker 3. So if you've purchased the Explorer 3 or the Maker 3, you'll want to look for a light grip mat, 12 by 12, and that is this blue color. And then you'll need some sort of adhesive to put your card together. I'm going to use a tape runner. You will need a scoring stylus or scoring wheel if you have the Maker. And I'll kind of talk about both of those as we design our card. I just have the scoring stylus out, but I do also have the scoring wheel, and I am going to use my Maker 3 machine. Again, these projects can be made on any Cricut machine. So the scoring stylus is common for those other machines, but if you have the Maker or Maker 3, you can use the scoring wheel. Now, 2 tools that are nice to have, but not required. This spatula is great for getting small paper pieces off your mat. This brayer is great for extending the life of your mat. So when you put your paper on your mat, you can roll this over the paper to kind of push it down into the adhesive. And as your mat ages, it's really great to have this. And it sort of like makes your mat last a little longer because you're able to use it more times. Now that you have your supplies for this simple paper card, let's take a look at how to design it in Design Space and then cut and make it. Here's the card design that we are going to make. So let's talk about how to find a design in Cricut Design Space. So usually when you get a machine, it comes with a free trial for access. So you can use the images that are in Design Space, especially as you begin and start out. It's a little bit easier. So I would click Images. And then for the cards, I just searched birthday card and then just picked from the ones that pulled up and picked one I liked. Now, as a beginner, I would recommend a simple card design. One that has 1 color, maybe 2, not a ton of layering going on. That way you can get a feel for your machine before you dive into more complicated cards. So I went ahead and picked a card like that. Now, this card does have an envelope, but it is still a very simple design. Now, when you pick something like this from Cricut Design Space, it comes in grouped, so we can see that in the layers panel that it says group. I am going to ungroup that with the ungroup button because I do want to change the colors. So you can change the colors on any element in Cricut Design Space, and once we go to make it, it will kind of like give us a clue as to what colors we've decided to use, and it also helps you visualize your project on the screen to make sure those colors are what we want. So what I'm going to do is pick the card itself. So as you can see, if I have this entire piece picked, I can't choose a color. That's because I have the score line and the cut object picked. So what I want to do is pick just the cut. So I click where it says basic cut, And now I can pull down this little box and I can change the color. So I want to make this out of a dark pink color, but there's not really a color that matches on this screen. So we're going to click the plus beside advanced, and then I can just pick from various shades, move the slider to different shades, and I think I'm going to move it all the way over, and then pick a dark pink. So something like that is pretty close to the color paper that I'm going to use. And then for these, I want to use a white paper. So I'm just going to pick white. And so now I can kind of get an idea of like, do I want that? And again, I will have to click the cut, change my color to white. And so I can get an idea of, do I like that? Does it look pretty good? Do I want to make the envelope pink as well? And I might want to do that. So I might go back to the envelope, decide I want it to be the pink color that I'm using for the card. The colors across the top are the colors that are in your project. So if I pick this pink, it's the exact same pink as the card. Now, one more thing you need to make sure of in Cricut Design Space, and that is that the proper machine is picked. So you want to pull down this menu and pick the machine that you're using. So for these, I'm going to use my Maker 3 to cut this. Now, any Cricut machine can cut paper, so we can definitely pick from any of the machines. So pick the machine you have. And now we have all of our elements. Now the score line is attached to the card, and this score line is attached to the envelope. And you can see that because it has the word attach above it. And that is actually what we want to happen. This also came in at a certain size. So if I click the card, I can see that it's 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So once that is folded in half, it'll be about 5.5 inches by 4.25 inches. I can take a ruler out, kind of visualize that in my mind. Is that the size card I want? If it isn't, and I wanted to resize this, I would need to make sure I picked everything. So I would draw a box around all of my elements, pick all of those, make sure they're all highlighted in gray over here, and then I could resize one of two ways. I could use this arrow button to resize. As long as the lock button is locked and not unlocked, it'll change all the elements the same amount and keep my proportions the same. I could also type a size up here if I wanted to just type a size, that particular size that I wanted. So I'm happy with the size, I'm fine with the way it looks. So I'm gonna go ahead and click Make It and start to cut our project. Since I'm using the Maker 3, so the Maker 3, Explorer 3, and the Joy will all pull up this screen. If you're using an Explorer Air 2 or the original Maker, you will not see this screen. I'm gonna cut all of these on the mat and use regular paper. So I'm gonna say on mat, and I'm gonna click done. Now I can see all of my elements. Now these will look exactly the same if you are using an Explorer Air 2 or the original Maker at this point, because I picked on mat. It'll tell you the material size you need, and I have 12 by 12 paper, so this is fine. If for these pink ones you had 12 by 24 paper, you could pull this down and pick 12 by 24, and it would put them both on the same mat. I'm going to change that back to 12 by 12 because that's the paper I have. And now I'm going to click continue because I am ready to cut and everything looks good. Also for paper, you don't have to mirror your design, so we are good to go. So we're going to click continue. All right, so I've connected my machine. I have my machine on. You can see the name of your machine at the top. And now we want to pick a cardstock. I'm using Cricut cardstock. So any material that you see the Cricut C beside, that is their brand of material. So you can definitely browse all materials if you want to see more options for your material type. And up here you can type the name of the material in this box to search. So I would use medium cardstock because it has the Cricut C beside it. Now, if you have really small cuts, which I do not recommend for a starter project, but if you had really small cuts, this cardstock for intricate cuts setting is definitely the setting that you want to try to use. But I'm going to use the medium cardstock setting and click done. I could have also picked that up at the top up here. So I could have just picked it by clicking this box here. And then once I have my material picked, the machine actually tells me what tools I need. So the first sheet, because it only has cut lines, I only need my fine point blade. And the fine point blade is the one that comes with all machines. So I can go ahead and add my mat and cut. But I did want to show you before we get to the cutting phase that when we get to these other mats, we'll pick medium cardstock, and then it will tell me that I need a scoring wheel. So we were going to score, remember, our envelope and our card to get those fold lines. If you have the scoring stylus instead, you would click Edit Tools, and you could pick Scoring Stylus from this menu and click apply. So you can do that in both cases for the envelope and the card, just depending on what scoring tool you have. And it tells you to put your scoring stylus, in this case in clamp A, fine point blade in clamp B. Now if I had the single scoring wheel, I would pick it and I would load it in clamp B. The machine would score, it would stop, the software would ask me to load my fine point blade. I would do that at that time, and then it would cut my envelope or my card. So you can make this no matter if you have the stylus or the scoring wheel. So now let's head to the Cricut and cut a card. So the first thing you're going to want to do with your mat is to peel back the protective sheet. Now save this sheet. You want to store your mats with the sheet attached. This keeps dirt and debris off of your mat and makes them last a little bit longer. Then we're going to cut the white paper first. So use the grid lines on the mat to line up your paper. And once it's lined up, just press it down into that adhesive. Again, once your mat gets older, something like this brayer will help, and you just roll it across the paper to press it down even more. So now our paper is ready for our machine. So let's take a look at the machine and how we're going to cut. At this point, the arrow button should be flashing on your machine. So that's telling you that you're ready to load your mat. So you just take your mat to your machine, make sure it's under the guides on both sides, press it against the rollers and hold it up against the rollers while pressing the arrow button at the same time. And now we're ready to cut. So we'll press the arrow button and the mat will load into the machine. So at this point, it's checking that you have the correct blade installed and that you have enough material. Remember, this called for the fine point blade because we're just cutting the white cardstock, we're not scoring. So I have my fine point blade installed into my machine, and now it's time to cut. So we're just gonna press the go button and the machine will cut our design. Again, it goes through some detection steps and then it's ready to cut. When your machine is done cutting, the arrow button will start flashing again, and you just press it to unload your mat. So now let's take a look at removing the card pieces from the mat. So now you can see that our project is cut. Now, my number one tip for removing paper from a Cricut mat is to do it the opposite of the way you might think. So we want to turn our mat over upside down. So here I have my mat upside down, and you want to peel the mat back from your project instead of the other way around. Why do we do this? So this is so that the paper does not curl as badly, and as you go along you can pull out all your little pieces, and in this case those would be scrap. So you just want to keep peeling back until your piece is loose, and then you can remove it. Now this piece was designed to be removed as one piece, so I don't have to worry about things like the centers of letters. So that's why it's amazing for a beginner. So if you have a piece where you need to worry about the centers of any of these, you'll want to be sure to save them off of your mat. Now, I was talking about how this spatula is a lifesaver, but not required. And I like to use it to push these scraps off my mat and get it all cleaned up and ready for our next cut. So I'm going to use the scoring stylus. We talked a bit about how it can be the scoring wheel or the scoring stylus. I think the stylus is a little more common, so I'm going to go ahead and try it. So you just open clamp A for the stylus. Make sure the arrow and the word Cricut on your stylus is facing you. Put that into your machine and press down until it clicks. And then you just close the clamp. Now the stylus is ready to use, and we still have our fine point blade in clamp B for the cutting portion. So this means that it will score and cut, and all I have to do is press the go button one time. If you're using a scoring stylus, you'll put it in clamp B. The machine will stop after scoring, and you'll have to change out the scoring wheel for the fine point blade to get the cut portion of your project. Now we'll just load our mat in the same way as we did for the white paper. And then just press the go button to cut. The machine will add the scoring lines first, and then it will cut the rest of your project. Once it's done cutting, we'll just remove this mat from the machine. I'm going to remove this paper in the same way as I did the other paper, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the second pink sheet with the card. Then we'll talk about assembling this project. Remember, there's a score line running down the middle. Our Cricut added the score line, so it's super easy to find it and to fold the card exactly in half. I'm going to use a dry adhesive. You could use any adhesive that you like. Then once you have that adhesive added, just add your paper to the front of your card. This lines up exactly with the card front, and then you just need to press your adhesive into place, and the card itself is done. You can write any sentiment you would like on the inside. Remember, your Cricut will write with pen, so as you get more advanced, you could add writing to the inside. Now, to make the envelope that goes along with it, all you need to do is fold along the score lines. There should be 4 score lines. Then to complete my envelope, I like to run adhesive along these 2 flaps. Then just press down this bottom flap. Now we have an envelope. We can add in the card that we just made, close the flap, and it's ready to give. Remember, you can write a name and address on the front of this to mail it off, or just who it's to and who it's from. Again, once you get more advanced, use your pens in your Cricut machine to do the writing for you. And now you have a cute card for a birthday, or make one for another occasion. So now let's dive into vinyl and take a look at the supplies you'll need for your keychain. So for the keychain, we are going to need permanent glossy premium vinyl. This is a variety pack, and we'll be using 2 colors out of it. Again, the light grip mat is fine. You'll need the keychain blank itself. You'll need some sort of scraper. The most common scraper is a small one like this. I prefer the larger one, so I always recommend it for beginners. Then you'll need some sort of weeding tool. The weeding tool is completely up to you. I like this one that kind of has 2 bends on it, but it's kind of a personal preference. And then once again, we'll be using our Maker 3 machine. Then you will need transfer tape to actually transfer your vinyl to your keychain. It comes on a roll like this. This is a bulk roll. You can definitely get a roll in any size. Just be sure you don't get the strong grip. The strong grip is only for things like glitter vinyl and specialty vinyl. So you just want the regular grip transfer tape will be fine for this project. And then probably a pair of scissors, your fine point blade for your machine, and probably a ruler to measure the blank itself to make sure that you get your vinyl the right size. So now that we have the supplies, let's take a look in Design Space at how to design this keychain, both sides, and where to get the donut file. All right, so for the adhesive vinyl project, I thought these donuts would be fun to put on our little keychain. So for the keychain, I went ahead and measured it with a ruler. And I think 2 inches around would be optimal to add to this particular blank. So what you just do is you just measure your blank with a ruler and kind of get an idea of what you think would look good. Now you can drag with this arrow button to resize, but sometimes it's hard to get exactly 2 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and jump up here, and I'm going to just press 2. And as you can see, my lock button was locked here and here. That means the entire thing resized exactly in proportion. So now it is 2 inches by 2 inches. If, for example, I was to unlock this and let's say I put 2.5 inches in one, it would distort the image. So if you do not want your image distorted, you want to make sure that it's locked. So now I put 2 in both, and I would want to make sure it's locked if I want to resize it any further. So then I'm going to click my other one, and I'm going to make sure it's locked, and I'm going to say 2. So now they're both 2 inches. And so I thought it would be fun to put one donut on one side and another donut on another side. I also thought it would be fun to make these 2 different colors. So one of them I'm going to make purple. I'm gonna go ahead and pick this purple from the color menu. And this one I do think I will leave it a light pink. So I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it the color it is. So now I have an idea of the colors and what they're gonna look like, and I'll know that when I click make it, my projects will be on 2 different mats, one pink and one purple. I'm gonna go ahead and choose my machine from the drop down. You always wanna do that. So I found these donuts in the same way as I found my card. So just to go over that one more time, I would click images, and I just searched donut because that's what I knew I wanted to make. Now there are literally thousands of images in Cricut Design Space, so you can definitely surf around for whatever you would like to make and just scroll down and start looking at the different options. Now, like this particular donut is a free image, so it didn't matter if you were an Access subscriber or had a free trial of Access. You can definitely find free images like a cute donut right in Cricut Design Space. So I'm just going to click cancel because I have already found my donut designs. So now I'm going to click make it, and let's take a look at these on the mat. Once again, if you're using the Maker 3, Explore 3, or the Joy, it's going to ask you this question, and I'm going to pick on the mat because I'm going to use regular vinyl. The only time you pick without a mat is for Cricut Smart Materials only. I'm not using the Smart Materials, so I'm going to click on the mat and click done. And now we see our donuts on two different mats, a pink and a purple. So you will note that the matte color in this screen matches whatever color that you picked for your item in the first screen. This kind of helps you keep everything straight, especially if you have several different objects. What object is supposed to be cut out of what color? Now we'll click continue. After my machine connects, we see the different options. Again, we can click browse on materials to see more, but my vinyl is actually premium vinyl, permanent glossy. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pick that from right here. And you'll see that I load the fine point blade in clamp B and cut my design. Now these are exactly the same. They're both premium vinyl. So I can actually click this remember material settings button. And then when I go to my second mat to cut it, it won't ask me again because these two mats are the exact same material. So that's one little tip to help you keep from picking a material every single time you go to cut a mat. So now let's head to our Cricut machine and cut our premium vinyl for our keychain. We add the vinyl to the mat in a similar way as we did the paper. So remember to remove that protective film from your mat and save it so you can put it back on there after you're done. Line your vinyl up with the grid, press it down well onto the mat. Again, you can go over it with a brayer if you feel like it's not down very well. And then once your vinyl is on the mat, it's time to head to our Cricut machine and make our cuts. By now you should be pretty good at loading your mat. You load the mat in the same way, pressing the arrow button and pushing in. Again, this project uses the fine point blade and it's loaded into clamp B. And now we can press go to start our cut. Then, once your machine's done cutting, again, we'll press the arrow button to remove the mat from the machine. I'm going to go ahead and cut my pink vinyl in the same way, and then we'll talk about removing the vinyl from the mat and our next steps to assemble our project. As with the paper, it's always a good idea to peel the mat back from your material, even though this is vinyl in this case, just so your sheet does not curl up. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this whole sheet of vinyl, and then we'll talk about what happens next. In this case, I put a whole sheet of vinyl on the mat. However, I just cut a small portion in the corner. So what you can do is just use a pair of scissors to trim away all the excess, and then we'll save the rest of the sheet for another project. I'm going to repeat this for my purple, and then we'll talk about weeding and applying our design. Now, let's make that keychain. So what we want to do is weed our vinyl. In this case, we're going to weed everything around the outside edge, as well as the center of our donut, and every single one of our sprinkles. So we'll just use our weeding tool. You can see the cut lines, and you just pick up all of those small pieces with your weeding tool. So I'm just going to do this for both my pink donut as well as my purple donut. If you're new to weeding, just go slow. This is a fairly simple design, perfect for beginners to do weeding for the first time. Now that both designs have been completely weeded, one tip and trick, just to make sure you got all those little pieces, is to hold these up to the light and make sure you don't see any additional cut lines. So now it's time to add them to our keychain. You do want to make sure that your surface is clean. So I have cleaned this keychain with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and allowed it to dry completely. I went ahead and cleaned the front and the back so that both sides are clean, so we can go ahead and add our design to the front and the back. So now I'm going to use my transfer tape. So I just cut a small piece of transfer tape off of that huge roll because there's no sense in using the entire roll. And you just peel the backing paper, and then you have a clear piece of transfer tape with grid lines. And then we'll just stick it to our vinyl, and that's where the scraper comes in. So we are going to scrape and burnish the vinyl on the front as well as on the back. And then you just peel back the backing paper from the vinyl. So it is best to go all the way back where it's back on itself so that it peels away easily, and you want to leave your vinyl on the transfer tape. If it's not peeling easily, just go over and burnish it again with your scraper and try once again. So once the vinyl is completely on the transfer tape, it's time to apply it to our keychain. The front and the back of this keychain are exactly the same, so we can just apply this to one side. And you just want to eyeball it and approximately get it in the center. Now you can use something like a ruler to get it more exact, but I'm just going to eyeball it, get it about in the center of my keychain, and then just apply it down. And now we'll just burnish this down really well, pushing fairly hard to make sure you get it down well and all the bubbles are out. And then once again, we'll peel this transfer tape back. Again, it's best to go all the way back onto itself when you peel back. Picking straight up usually doesn't work. Peeling back straight on itself is the method that I like. Now, we can reuse this transfer tape for the other side. There's no reason to get another piece, so I'm just going to pull my second piece of vinyl up, add the transfer tape, and repeat the entire process of burnishing and applying to the other side. And now it's done, and my donut is on my second side. So now you can see I have a two-sided keychain just that easily. So now you have a cute keychain to keep for yourself or give as a gift. So let's move on to iron-on and look at the supplies we're going to need. Next up, we're going to make a zipper pouch, so you'll need the zipper pouch itself. I recommend everyday iron-on, and I'm going to use this pink color, a weeding tool, again the light grip mat and fine point blade. Any Cricut machine will work. I'm going to use my Maker 3 once again. And then you'll need something to apply the iron-on. So iron-on uses a heat-activated adhesive. I'm going to use my Cricut Easy Press as well as my Easy Press mat. You can definitely use an iron to do this project. I do find the Easy Press has more consistent heat and is easier for beginners, so please keep that in mind. So I will be using that in this tutorial. So now you have your iron-on supplies to make this cute zipper pouch. Let's take a look in Design Space at how to get that design. Next up is our iron-on project. So for this one, I measured my bag, and really the height is what I'm most worried about. I don't want it to be any more than 3.75 inches tall. So I'm gonna go ahead and start resizing this and get to 3.75 inches approximately, or once again, I can type that up here and get it exact. And again, I have it locked so everything stays in proportion. And now it is 4.86 inches wide. So now I would go back with my ruler and I would measure and see if I think the 4.86 inches will look good. And I'm not wild about that on my project. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click the unlock button and I'm going to kind of squish this up a little bit. So I still think it looks pretty good right there. And I'm going to lock it back and I'm going to pick 3.75 again up here. And now it's 5.797 wide. So I was able to make it wider while still keeping it the height I wanted. And now I think that that will look better on my zipper pouch, if that makes sense. And I am going to make this out of a really bright pink, so I can go ahead and change that if I would like, just to kind of get a feel for what it's going to look like, cut out of a pink color. And I do think that looks pretty good. I can make any more changes that I want to make. And so this time we're cutting iron-on. We're going to iron this on that fabric zipper pouch. So what I want to do, go up here, once again, make sure the right machine is picked. And this time I'm going to talk about saving your project. So if you want to save this project for later, you always want to drop down and do save. And then you can do save as. You can name it anything you would like here. So I'm going to name this Positivity Zipper Pouch. And then if you're new to Design Space, you probably won't have any collections down here, but you can just add a new collection, whatever you want to say. So I might say iron-on projects. If you have Access subscription, you have unlimited collections. If you don't, your number of collections will be limited, but you can still kind of organize your projects a bit. And then we'll click save. So I like to save before I cut, so it gets all those changes that I've just made. And it does say my project was saved successfully, so now we are ready to make it. Once again, if you have the Maker 3, Explorer 3, or Joy, you will get asked this question. I am not using smart materials, so I'm going to cut on a mat and click done. Now, we are cutting iron-on this time. Iron-on has to be mirrored. You will see why as we make our zipper pouch, but always mirror your iron-on design. And when you click mirror, you should see the design actually mirror on your mat over here. So make sure it looks backwards, basically, and then click continue. Once it connects to our machine, we have some options, again, for picking a material. So I recommend everyday iron-on for the type of zipper pouch that we are making. and it's a better beginner project rather than some of the glitter iron-ons. So just plain everyday iron-on is what I would recommend, especially for beginners. Again, it's going to call for a fine point blade and no other tools. You can hover at any point over this mat on the left-hand side, and it'll kind of blow it up a little bit. So you can once again check, make sure I have it mirrored. It says mirrored on in this area right here. So again, you can double check, make sure everything looks okay before you actually load your mat into your machine. So now let's go cut our iron-on and put it on our zipper pouch. All right, let's talk about applying iron-on to the mat. So iron-on looks the same on both sides, except one side is shiny. You'll want to put that shiny side down onto your mat. And once again, we always remove the protective cover and reveal the sticky layer on our mat. Then I just line my material up with the grid. This mat's getting kind of old, so I'm going to kind of bray it down. Now, this roll of iron-on is a very long roll. I want to waste as little as possible, so I don't want to cut this off. I'm going to leave the roll hanging off the edge of my mat as I cut. It'll cut fine, and I can salvage the rest of this and roll up all of my excess to use for another project. Remember to mirror your design like we talked about when we were designing our project. Definitely the #1 mistake I see when doing iron-on is not hitting that mirror button. So now let's head to our Cricut machine and cut our design. So now I have my Cricut machine ready to cut. I'm gonna load my mat exactly like every other time by pressing that arrow button, but I did want you to see the roll hanging off the edge. Now the fine point blade is installed in clamp B, and I'm gonna press the go button to cut. Now I'll just remove the mat from the machine and we'll take a look at what to do next with iron-on. I once again have this flipped over just to peel the mat back from the material. Once again, I'll cut it with scissors around my design to save the rest of the roll. So next we need to weed our iron-on. So I do have my Cricut Easy Press heating up. I always go to the Cricut heat guide and look up the time and the temperature for the materials that I'm using in order to get the correct time and temperature. Weeding iron-on is similar to weeding vinyl. Now, I do have the shiny side down still. Remember, shiny side down. And then we'll just start peeling this back. Now, the liner on iron-on is sticky, so you will notice that this portion is going to be a little bit sticky, and that is okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. The iron-on itself, however, that comes off, or your scrap pieces, will not be sticky, and you can just discard those. Then I'm just going to run through, grab with my weeding tool, all of the pieces that I do not want transferred to my project. So in this case, I would leave things like the centers of the letters because of the way my design is. So that A there, I'm going to leave the center of that letter. So I'll just continue weeding this entire design, and then we'll talk about applying it to the zipper pouch. I do recommend on something like this zipper pouch, if you can, add your mat inside the zipper pouch. If you're using an iron, use like a folded up towel inside your zipper pouch. It will make your pressing process much, much easier. I'm just going to use the Easy Press to lightly heat the surface, make sure there's no moisture in the surface or wrinkles. My iron-on is still over here and not on the surface. So now I have my iron-on, and I do recommend that you hold it up to the light, make sure you've got all of your pieces out before application, and then we'll just turn it over, sticky side down, and this time it should read. So if you have words, they should now be turned the correct way. And then we want to locate it on our zipper pouch. You can definitely use a tape measure here. Find the approximate center of your zipper pouch, and then find the center of your design and line those up. And then line it up top to bottom where you want it. And you also want to make sure it's straight. So a lot of times what I like to do on a design like this is to make sure I'm the same amount away from the top on both sides. Once I have that right, we're ready to press. The liner is slightly sticky for a reason, so it will hold it in place at least a little bit. And so we want to try to press this design all at once if we can. And we just put the Easy Press down, hit the timer, and press down. Now if you can't cover it all at once, you can press it in like 2 pieces. So press once, then press again. Just be sure to overlap that slightly so you get the entire design. Once it beeps, we'll remove that. And now we want to press from the back because that's what it says to do on the heat guide. So you just want to follow whatever instructions are on the heat guide. I'm going to put my easy press there, and I'm going to press for the full time from the back as well. We are going to let this cool completely. That's like one of the big mistakes I see with Cricut iron-on. You need to let it cool completely to the touch before you remove this carrier sheet. Otherwise, most likely your iron-on is going to peel up with the carrier sheet. One trick is to remove this mat because the mat does hold heat, and that'll help it cool a little faster. Once your project's cool to the touch, you can start peeling back this clear sheet. So what you're looking for is that the iron-on is stuck to your project and not on the sheet any longer. If any of it peels up with your sheet, you need to reapply the sheet and press once again for the full time and see if you can get it to stick. So now my zipper pouch is complete. All right, now we've made 3 different Cricut projects, all perfect for beginners. So whether you are struggling with iron-on an application, or wanting to know how to weed vinyl and apply it to the surface, or struggling with the very basics of cutting paper, hopefully this video helped you and gave you some tips and tricks for doing each of these projects. If you have any questions about any of the projects we made or any beginner Cricut questions, feel free to ask those in the comment section below. If you liked this video, if it helped you, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos like this every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank y'all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.